Welcome to the JD Power Insurance Intelligence Podcast. I'm Michael Vermillion with JD Power, and with me today are Steve Crutzen from JD Power. Welcome, Steve.
Hi there, Mike.
And also Craig Martin from JD Power. Craig, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, great to be with Mike.
So the topic for today is the recent conference we had in Chicago on the topic of AI and insurance, and I think we thought the conference went pretty well. This was the inaugural AI conference for the JD Power Insurance practice. We were hoping to get around 80 people in the room. I think we had close to 100, so it was standing room only. We had an amazing cast of speakers and panelists. We covered a lot of topics. And really, I think one of the things that I heard a lot of comments on was just the idea that we were looking at AI not just from one perspective. It wasn't just like the technology angle, for example. It was really kind of a 360 view where we looked at topics ranging from innovation to underwriting to the future of work to the local agent. We even had a fireside chat with a CEO to get the CEO's perspective. We talked about adoption and even the impact on the future of the customer experience. So Steve, Craig, what were your impressions from the day in Chicago last week?
Yeah, overall, I'd say the whole space around AI generally is moving very fast. So the technology, the adoption in many industries is moving very fast. I don't think it comes as too much of a surprise that here in the insurance space, it's moving a little bit slower. Our industry tends to be one that kind of has a wait and see approach. Also, a fair amount of red tape to go through in an organization like an insurance company. You think about what insurance companies do, they finance risk. They're very sensitive to risk. And when they see AI, they may see some more risk in other organizations, so they're moving a little bit slower. On the flip side of that, though, we had some agent principals speak at the conference about how quickly they're adopting AI. So from a customer perspective, you might find that your local agency has really jumped on to AI, whereas your carrier is moving a little bit slower. So that there might be some tension there with the customer experience where the agency is moving fast, the carrier is being more deliberate and moving a little bit slower. But I don't think that was terribly surprising given the status of the insurance space.
Yeah, Steve, so just to build on that point, I think one of the things we heard at the conference was that a couple of the reasons that AI adoption among the carriers might be a little bit slower than it is in other industries is the fact that insurance, to your point, is highly regulated in the U.S. And even regulated at the state level, and a lot of those regulations are still being written. And so it's a little bit hard to move fast when it's kind of a moving target in terms of regulation. I think another point was made around the fact that there's just a lack of case law at this point. And so case law typically helps you shape your contracts and your processes and your procedures. And we do have some lawsuits in the courts that are moving forward slowly. But for the most part, there's just a lack of case law to help us kind of define how we do things. Craig, what were your takeaways from the conference and kind of your thoughts on the current state of AI and insurance?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there was a lot of excitement in the room in many ways. I mean, again, you could tell that, again, given all the challenges, people are hungry for insights and perspective and they recognize they can't just ignore it. And I think that's kind of that critical aspect. And then certainly on the agent side, we heard a lot of this theme of, not that AI is going to replace humans in the future, and the kind of concept of I'm going to be out of a job, but rather folks who use AI. And again, I think that to Steve's point, you're seeing a lot of independent agents, a lot of smaller agencies are starting to leverage this as a competitive advantage. How do I take advantage of this be an earlier mover. Big carriers obviously have advantages on a number of fronts. So, the smaller folks are going to leverage that. And then down at the agent level, how do I use this to become more efficient, more effective? And I think that's kind of the key concept of, the agent who uses AI to kind of effectively make change and do better for their clients is going to be able to supplant those who try to go the traditional route and ignore AI. And so there was definitely that. Again, there's some eye-opening stats and information shared by again a lot of the different speakers, but it really struck me as ignoring AI is not an option. So how do you think about where does it fit? How do you test? How do you learn? How do you go down that path? And access to that information is really critical, and understanding it. I think that was the other key point that I heard is, you don't have to be the expert in the room right up front, but thinking about, hey, where can I fit this into my world and my life, my daily operations? It was really a kind of a common theme or idea that resonated.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. So why don't we look ahead? So here we are, kind of late April 2025. With AI, it's kind of hard to tell how far to look ahead. I mean, do we look ahead 5 years, 2 years, like next week? What's going to happen, right? But why don't we look at 12 months? So what are your thoughts in terms of where we're going to be a year from now with AI and insurance? So Craig, maybe you can kick that off with kind of your perspective on agents.
Absolutely. So, I think we heard a lot of folks at the conference really talk about this idea that internal is where they're going to start. So I definitely see the agents being kind of a beachhead front where AI is going to be leveraged. And that's going to be things like, again, you're trying to make them more personalized. So access to data, access to information, you've got a lot of challenges that they're faced with. It's premium increases, trying to retain that customer. How do you get information quickly to personalize your communications, to identify who are the customers that are most likely at risk? How do you have the right discussions? How do you feed kind of information? So I think we're going to see AI be leveraged, by especially the leading carriers more effectively to provide information, provide kind of insights, and then allowing their experts on the front lines to leverage that content. So again, and I think the other key piece is going to be prospecting. Again, I know Steve's right in the heart of all the shopping and consideration information. That's a critical part. How do you take advantage of that? How do you take that data that understand who's shopping, when they're shopping, why they're shopping, and be able to have a meaningful conversation, get them, and really attract, that new client to drive growth and improve profits going forward. So I think that's going to be some pretty critical things that we'll see is leveraging AI to really understand clients and then also enable folks to have more meaningful discussions.
So Steve, looking ahead, a year from now, what's your prediction in terms of the impact of AI on the customer experience for the typical insurance consumer?
Yeah, I think when we talk about the customer experience at JD Power, we typically break it into three parts: the customer acquisition phase, everything around sales and service, or everything around marketing and sales, and then you think about the service phase, so the day-to-day service, and then third piece that we look at is the claim, the real moment of truth. I think in the next year we're going to see advancement in all three fronts. Craig just spoke to on the customer acquisition side. We've exited in personal lines auto. We've essentially exited the hard market cycle that we were in for the last 3 years. Insurers are looking to grow again. We're seeing that with reigniting some sales channels that they exited during the hard market. We're seeing ad spend pick up. I think we're going to see AI play a larger role in helping insurers be more smart about who they're acquiring and how they're acquiring them. The lessons learned over the last few years have really affected, as we all see in pricing, the premiums that we pay, but it's also affected insurers' underwriting appetite. And I think that AI can really help with insurers making sure they're acquiring the right customer, that they're differentiating the experience for a higher value customer. Our shopping study shows right now they suffer at that. The industry as a whole suffers at identifying who is the high value shopper when they're shopping, and then distinguishing a different, better experience for them when they're shopping if they're a high value customer. On the service side, there's so much opportunity there. Right now, AI is in this space more than anything helping the human provide a better transaction, and we think we'll see that continue to grow over the next year. But also the agentic AI kind of taking over some of the transactions for people. And we were asked at the conference, well, from a JD Power perspective, what would be a good AI customer experience then if it's an agentic experience? And I think the best answer we can come up with right now is that the customer doesn't know that it was AI. That the customer leaves that call or that chat or whatever interaction it was thinking that was a great interaction with that was the best call center person I spoke to. That was the best person chatting with me I've ever spoken to, right? They leave thinking that will be the benchmark for a great AI experience, I think, in even less than a year. On the claim side, obviously so much opportunity there. We heard some talk about at the conference with claims reporting, how AI helps there, how AI can help with fraud detection in a claim. Insurers are starting to leverage AI in many fronts in the claims realm too. So whether it be customer acquisition, day-to-day service, or claims, ultimately, something we were just talking about yesterday, Mike, AI is not going to be a topic that's separate anymore. It's going to be just the way business gets done. We don't talk about the internet so much anymore, or mobile, or we go on planes to travel for business. We don't talk about like air travel being a separate thing from business anymore. We're soon going to be seeing, even in the insurance space, AI is not a separate topic anymore. It's just how business gets done.
Great, thanks, Steve. So just to kind of wrap things up here, what was your? So this is for both Steve and Craig. What was your kind of biggest takeaway from the conference, or was there any kind of like big surprise, where something that you heard or took away from the day that you didn't really expect going in? So, Craig, why don't we start it off with you?
Yeah, man, I think if I took one kind of key point away from just about every speaker was you need to be, if you're not using it today, you need to be using AI in some form or fashion. You need to get familiar with it, understand its capabilities, go out and test and learn. Because if you're waiting on the sidelines to figure this out, you're already too late. It's moving too fast, and you have to be proficient, at least in understanding and conceptualizing what's possible. So that was my kind of most critical takeaway from that.
Thanks, Craig. Steve?
I think a big takeaway is that the smaller players, so startups and agency groups and even individual agencies are moving faster on AI. That some might think that the larger carriers with more resources can move faster. It turns out that the smaller players and the startups are moving faster, and they're going to lead the way. So the case law that's going to be developed, for better or worse, will be developed on the backs of agents who moved fast, or startups who moved fast, or some of the smaller insurers who are moving fast in AI. And I think what's going to be interesting for years to come is how much does that leader status benefit them down the road versus being a fast follower or maybe a slow follower. We're going to see different insurers take different tacks, but the ones that are moving fast now, it's going to be interesting to see how that affects their growth and profitability in the near term and the longer term vis-a-vis their competition.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Craig. So just a note for our listeners, we did not record the AI and insurance conference that took place in Chicago, but we are please stay tuned and look for an upcoming series around AI and insurance where we'll be conducting one-on-one interviews in the form of a podcast with many of the key speakers and panelists that joined us at the conference in Chicago. So we'll have more information forthcoming on that. So Steve and Craig, thanks so much for taking the time today to join us.
Happy to be
Absolutely. Here. Our pleasure.
And we want to thank our listeners as well, and we'll see you next time.